4:12 in the morning, the truck stopped in total darkness. No base lights. No welcoming officers. Just a frozen forest and a line of silent instructors watching from the snow. Somewhere far from any city, a group of recruits stepped down believing they had volunteered for elite military training. What they didn't know was that from this moment forward, everything, sleep, food, warmth, certainty, would be controlled. Before we go deeper, tell me in the comments, where are you watching this from right now? Because the story you're about to hear isn't about weapons or combat scenes. It's about the psychological machine designed to break ordinary soldiers and rebuild the few who don't quit. There was no orientation, no schedule, no explanation. Within minutes of arriving, the recruits were ordered back into trucks and driven even deeper into remote wilderness. When the doors opened again, an instructor simply pointed toward a distant tree line and said one word: run. No finish line, no time limit, just run. Some sprinted immediately, thinking this was a short evaluation. Hours later, they understood the truth. This wasn't a test of speed. It was a test of judgment. The ones who burned energy early began collapsing before sunset, and the instructors never shouted. They only wrote numbers quietly onto clipboards. By nightfall, shoulders were bleeding under pack straps and water supplies were gone. One recruit dropped from dehydration and had to be dragged upright just to keep walking. Nobody was allowed to stop completely. When they finally reached the temporary camp, there was no speech waiting. Just a ration pack tossed into the snow and a sleeping bag. Then one instructor spoke calmly: if today felt difficult, understand clearly. Today was only the filter. And for the first time, the recruits realized something chilling. This training program wasn't built to teach them first. It was built to eliminate them. Morning didn't begin with an alarm. It began with blank gunfire exploding across the forest and floodlights snapping on through the mist. Candidates had 3 minutes to pack and form ranks. Anyone late carried extra group equipment. The daily rhythm became relentless. Ice water trench crawls. Forest navigation while unseen observers tracked mistakes. Equipment assembly with numb fingers. Radio codes memorized after near-zero sleep. Meals came fast and small, enough to function, never enough to feel strong. Within days, something changed. The recruits stopped asking how long training would last. Survival narrowed into one thought only: finish the next task. Week 3 introduced sleep deprivation, deliberately engineered to destroy decision-making. Teams were sent into a 36-hour infiltration simulation with almost no rest. Their mission sounded simple: enter a mock hostile settlement, recover hidden markers, exit undetected. But instructors flooded the environment with psychological traps. Fake radio messages. Wrong map coordinates. Civilians blocking routes. Some teams began whisper arguing. Others went silent and adapted. And when they returned, exhausted beyond speech, nobody praised them. Instead, each recruit received a notebook and one instruction: write down every mistake you personally made. Not the team's mistakes, only yours. Winter field deployment pushed the physical strain into survival territory. Snow doubled energy expenditure. Metal equipment froze to bare skin. Weapons had to be cleaned constantly or they'd fail. One night, recruits built emergency shelters with only tarps and branches, then endured harassment drills all night, preventing real sleep. The following day, after dragging heavy sleds across an icy riverbed, they expected rest. Instead, instructors ordered an immediate casualty evacuation scenario, forcing them to carry a full-weight injured operator 4 kilometers through frozen terrain. Nobody complained anymore. They had learned resistance wasted energy. Adaptation saved it. Weapons training shocked many recruits for one reason: they almost never fired while rested. Instead, instructors forced uphill sprints, mud crawls, and heavy lifts first, then demanded instant target accuracy while hands shook violently. Breathing control became more important than marksmanship skill. Instructors secretly sabotaged rifles mid-drill to simulate real malfunctions. One previously top-scoring shooter suddenly failed repeatedly. Another average marksman stayed calm under exhaustion and rose quickly in instructor rankings. The message was unmistakable. Elite operators aren't measured by best-case performance. They're measured by worst-case reliability. Close-quarters combat training happened inside dark industrial buildings simulating urban interiors. But this wasn't about flashy fighting. It was about speed of decision. Subdue. Disengage. Extract. Repeat. Pairings rotated constantly so nobody learned a predictable opponent. One afternoon, instructors forced immediate sparring right after a freezing navigation run. Coordination vanished. That collapse was intentional. Because in real operations, fine motor control disappears under stress. Training had to teach function inside chaos, not perfection in comfort. Communication drills became even more brutal psychologically. Candidates were woken after barely 2 hours of sleep and given a complex mission plan verbally only once. No notes allowed. Execution started immediately. Many forgot critical steps halfway through. Others instinctively repeated instructions quietly to teammates and succeeded. Instructors later explained the deeper rule. Memory collapses under exhaustion unless teams structure information together. Lone efficiency fails. Collective clarity survives. Mid-training came a phase recruits later nicknamed the corridor. It combined endurance movement, surveillance tasks, construction challenges, and constant navigation with unknown duration. Food resupply appeared randomly. Weather worsened. At one checkpoint, their extraction vehicle was declared destroyed, forcing reroute through swamp terrain. Psychological fatigue peaked here. Some physically dominant recruits began making tiny navigation errors that compounded dangerously. Meanwhile, quieter, mentally steady candidates became team anchors. Instructors watched this phase closely, because this was where future operational leaders revealed themselves. Medical trauma training followed, and many recruits later said this phase was the most stressful of all. Artificial blood systems pumped from simulated wounds. Smoke grenades detonated. Casualty screams blasted from speakers. Candidates had minutes to stabilize teammates while maintaining perimeter awareness. Hands trembled. Voices cracked. Mistakes forced full scenario resets. Slowly, repetition replaced panic with procedure. Instructors drilled one brutal truth into them. Missions rarely fail because nobody can shoot. Missions fail because someone bleeds out first. By now, the intake size had dropped sharply. Some removed by injury. Others quietly dismissed by performance. The remaining candidates stopped tracking time completely. Cold water immersion became routine. Night deployment felt normal. Equipment sabotage checks were expected. What scared them now wasn't punishment. It was becoming the weak link. They checked each other's gear automatically. Shared supplies silently. Adjusted movement spacing without orders. The instructors knew this moment mattered most, because the unit mindset had finally replaced the individual one. Then the final simulation arrived without warning. Candidates were blindfolded, transported to unfamiliar terrain, and released with one instruction: complete the mission and reach extraction within the operational window. No hints followed. No corrections came. For nearly 48 hours, teams moved independently under total stress. Months earlier, confusion would have shattered them. Now decisions happened quietly. Plans shifted calmly. Errors corrected instantly. Observing instructors recorded something critical. The recruits were no longer reacting to pressure. They were operating inside it. At dawn, extraction helicopters thundered over the trees. No cheering followed. The candidates secured the landing zone, confirmed head counts, and boarded in silence. Emotional control had become automatic. Back at base, instructors read identification numbers of those advancing to operational assignment consideration. Several numbers were missing. No explanation given. No dramatic speech followed. Advancement here wasn't emotional. It was procedural. And that silence spoke louder than any ceremony ever could. That night, for the first time in months, they received uninterrupted food and sleep. Yet many couldn't relax. Their bodies had been rewired for constant readiness. And that's the hidden truth behind elite special forces preparation. It isn't about creating fearless soldiers. It's about creating controlled ones. Operators who move while others freeze. Decide while others panic. Function while exhaustion screams to stop. Somewhere tonight, another intake may be stepping off trucks into freezing darkness, believing they understand what lies ahead. Soon they'll learn what every elite candidate learns. The real battlefield isn't the terrain. The real battlefield is the moment your body says stop, and your training answers move anyway.